Konnichiwa. I'm Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net. And today we're going to talk about some Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know a lot of people are loving the Book of Boba Fett. I know a lot of people are more perplexed by it. Fair enough. I get it. I'm loving the show, but I'm still perplexed by it. You can be both. You can be positively mixed, is how I would put it. But I got to be honest with you, if a year ago someone had said, look, in this briefcase is Book of Boba Fett, and this other briefcase is the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. You could lift it up. It's actually a laptop, and it's not a briefcase. You could watch either show you want. I would have picked Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've always liked Obi-Wan much better than Boba Fett. I think it's a much more fascinating story and a much more interesting he has a more interesting situation in the galaxy, and his relation to Luke Skywalker and stuff like that is all very interesting to me. So with that in mind, I was pretty much where my head's been. But I dig Boba Fett, and we'll talk a little bit about Boba Fett in a minute, because it is still Boba's time. And over the last couple of months, I've really shied away from talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi with any kind of intent or focus, because it's Boba's time. You want to give Boba his chance to shine, if you will. So with that in mind, we have a little bit of interesting Kenobi news, though, that's giving me an excuse to dip my little toe into the Kenobi pond. And this show and the website will focus on Kenobi pretty intensely in the coming months. So there was a tweet out from Brandon, who's a Disney executive, and he says, our very own Obi-Wan, and there's a typo there, but will be saying hello there on Disney Plus, May 2022. So there you have that, right? Well, I can't get to the other tweet, because right after that, this tweet was deleted. There was a typo there, which to me says a little bit something about how focused Brandon was when he made it. And he deleted it pretty quickly thereafter and said, oh no, it's not that. It's I was referring to the comic books. Yeah, that's what it was. And there was a comic book and a novel or something like that. That's coming out. And it really could just be that. I mean, it's possible you have this overworked person. They're very tired, but they're enthusiastic. They're trying to engage. And they said that. But if you ask me, that's my opinion, it is coming out in May. That just really makes the most sense when you really get down to it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It makes sense from a bajillion different angles. And then following that, I don't know if you want to call it an error, but Hollywood Reporter comes out. No, sorry, I'm kind of covering it. But it says, additionally, recent rumors say Disney Plus's Obi-Wan series will debut this May. The Hollywood Reporter sources corroborate this, but nothing is official until it's official. Fair enough, right? So the question becomes, is it a May 4th release or a May 25th? Now, my opinion, it's going to be May 25th. And it just kind of seems to make a lot more sense for a couple of different reasons I can't talk about. But that's my bet, if I had to bet. And understand, I'm betting. I don't concretely know. But I do know that the Kenobi series is most likely not going to disappoint. And so that the question becomes, will they or won't they release something at the end of Book of Boba? As Book of Boba winds down and we get our equivalent of a post-credit scene, that's kind of the opportunity to give us a trailer. Derpy Gaming is like, yeah, I want a trailer. Will we get at the Super Bowl? That's a pretty good guess. But and I have a feeling that rumor will kick itself up whether it has legs or not. just because it's like, why wouldn't they if they can? But you know, a trailer, the trailers for these shows, they've always been a bit weird to me. There's a vibe of reluctancy to it as well. Yes, Salvador, I believe that James Earl Jones is back in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I am almost definitely sure of that, but at the same time, as far as I know, that is the case. So makes me wonder, right? And when it comes to this Obi-Wan Kenobi series, we actually have something that is playing into the very heart of Star Wars. Whereas when we go into Book of Boba Fett, we have something trying to push beyond it. And honestly, I think Book of Boba Fett has a harder gig, a much harder gig in a lot of ways. And that's where no, it's Hayden. Yeah, Hayden is in Obi-Wan Kenobi as Anakin and Darth Vader. Back in months ago, I've seen both. So yeah, for what that's worth, you will. But when he's in the Darth Vader suit, it's not Hayden doing the voice. In case anybody didn't know. Just to be clear, sometimes when on this channel and on the show and stuff, that the audience can be 20 years old or 60, and so for some of us, we know all of this stuff. So I never want to seem condescending or like I'm talking down to you guys or giving you information that you guys already know or that's obvious to you if you've been following Star Wars for like 40 years. But when it's I don't know everybody, so I'm just trying to be as thorough as I can for a mush mouth. But yeah. So when it comes to these Star Wars shows, which ones are you guys the most excited for? Are you the most excited? Was Boba the one that you were waiting for the most? Is it Kenobi? Is it Cassian? Is it Acolyte? A Droid's Tale or Droid Story? I think it's a Droid Story. I keep messing that up. I know it's a Droid Story because it's like a Star Wars story, not like a Shark's Tale or whatever the hell that is. So Andrew says, I'm not sure what to think of the supposed rematch. I think it cheapens the line Darth Vader speaks in A New Hope about sensing Obi's presence since. Yeah, it definitely. Oh, and Ahsoka. How could I forget that, Salvador? Thank you. Yeah, it definitely recontextualizes it. If the show does what it's supposed to do, I think it's going to actually make it better. If the show connects, if it hits the beats, if it doesn't leave a lackluster, kind of vibe or taste in your mouth, it's going to make it better. Personally, my favorite Star Wars movie of all time is and will probably always be Revenge of the Sith. It just hits the beats for me. It's weird. I acknowledge that. I'm not saying it's the best movie of all time, but it does it for me. But at the same time, we know that that movie doesn't do it for everybody, or the prequels don't do it for everybody. And in a weird way, I feel like this Kenobi series is giving prequel fans such as myself more. It's like, you like that, you want to keep going, but it's also giving the people who maybe didn't like it as much the ability to have the version of the story that they were expecting. Because the thing with the prequels is that they kind of circumvented most people's expectations. George Lucas went in a way that was unexpected, and it didn't make people happy, or I should say, it didn't make a large part of the audience happy. A large part of the audience was happy, but it was very divided. And so this, I think, kind of is meeting in the middle, and it's gonna be somewhat unexpected as well in terms of where it goes, but at the same time, it's going to have the things that you want, the things that you expect. And so I think that's a pretty big thing for Star Wars at this time, because Oh, I'm gonna bring up an article that Rob. I was hoping Rob can make it on today, but it's Saturday. He's home with his wife and stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna do a stream at noon. Are you available? And he didn't respond. And but and I do not blame him at all for that. But he shared this little article with me today, and it was on writing. And I like when people send me stuff like this because it definitely. I am not a good writer. I acknowledge that. And but I am a armchair critic here, I like a lot of what they have done in Star Wars, but and there it is, there's the but. It can always be better. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of going on right now about like people getting really upset about the critiques that are going on around Book of Boba Fett. And honestly, like it's better if we are always loving and critiquing at the same time. When I was in grad school and I would deal with like undergrads, right? When I was like grading their papers, one like kind of tip that was given to me was that, and this makes people better, is critique what they've done, what the biggest problem is, and really tell them what their biggest problem was, but then tell them two other things about why they're great. And so that way the encouragement is outweighing the criticism, but the criticism is really helping. And if we are in a world where we just go, whoa, I trust Dave Filoni no matter what, and it's Dave Filoni needs the feedback too. As our creator, he needs to hear back exactly what's truly working and not just what he wants to hear or the Star Wars that we hope exists. But anyways, there was this article on writing that was sent to me by Rob, by Dave Perel, and it says the but and therefore rule. Matt Stone and Trey Parker are the creators of South Park. That they are. They want each episode to have a sense of cause and effect, tension, and rising action. To do that, they've studied the science of effective storytelling. They've noticed that boring stories build off the words and then, while entertaining ones used but and therefore. They tested the epiphany with a giant whiteboard in their writer's room while storyboarding ideas. They removed stories where they wanted to put the words and then between each section. For example, the story read, Jimmy went to the mall and then he realized he was tired when he stepped inside. And then he got a coffee. And then he walked back to the parking lot. And then he drove home. Boring. The story lacks tension without but and therefore moments. This is really, honestly, this is like really, really, I think, good advice and a good thing to consider, especially with Star Wars. However, swapping the and then moments with the but and therefore ones improves the story. It reads like this: Jimmy went to the mall, but realized he was tired when he stepped inside. Therefore, he picked up a coffee. But since he was tired, he had parked in an illegal spot. Therefore, by the time he returned to the parking lot, his car had already been towed. Now you have conflict. Jimmy's car is gone, and his day has changed for the worse. Visualize your stories with a whiteboard and outline and post-it notes. Identify the relationships between the scenes in your stories and replace the and then examples with but and therefore ones. And I think that is maybe where I am kind of, at with. Fuck you, man. He's all, so it's a but for. Yeah. What's a but for? And James agrees with that. He's also true. You learn more figuring out what didn't work versus what did. And that's like the thing with Star Wars is it's such an open fantasy world where all of this random craziness can happen, but for there to be a reason for some of these things to happen, you want to more or less fill that that happening in a way that's like, oh, this happened, so this happened, this made this happen, as opposed to this just comes out, this just occurs. And once again, I am in no way claiming to be a fantastic writer or even an expert at it. I barely can get by. I do my best. I definitely empathize with George Lucas here. And I do think that the people making the current Star Wars stuff are good writers. It just may be the fact that there are certain, like when I say agendas, I'm not turning into one of those guys who's going to talk about politics. I mean, like, you have an agenda to push in a character. You have an agenda to make these stories meet up, even though they don't want to. Right now, they don't want to. And that's how I feel about Boba Fett. And truly, I've watched the series probably more than you have. I can say that for a lot of you. Not all of you. Some of you are crazier than me. But I have watched it more than most of you. And I truly like all of it. And I feel like every single piece of it deserves to exist onto itself. But the connective tissue is super weird. It just is organizationally weird. And the one thing I've heard about Kenobi over the last, I would say, well, it's been a few months now. When was it when I saw you and I heard this? Like around that time. It was summer. And it was that this one is very coherent and linear. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know what that meant then. Oh, now I know what it means. Now I know what they're getting at. And for the record, not that this person gives a shit anyways, but I am not picking on this person, and I mean this is like with respect, but there's a tweet going around, and I wanted to talk about it a bit, because I do disagree, but I disagree with it, and it's from Adam Frazier. And once again, this isn't meant to harass him or to be a dick to him or anything like that. He's just sharing his thing, and I think it's food for thought, and it's been a really popular tweet that I keep seeing going around. And it says, thread, at Disney Investors Day on December 10th, 2020, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy announced that the next chapter of The Mandalorian would premiere in December 2021. Okay, we remember that. Shortly thereafter, The Mandalorian Season 2 finale, Chapter 16, The Rescue, was released. It included a surprise end credit sequence that revealed the Book of Boba Fett would premiere in December 2021. I remember that. I was there. Okay, you were there. We were all there. This led to confusion and speculation among the fans who believed this was a subtitle for the third season of The Mandalorian. Jon Favreau clarified that the Book of Boba Fett was his spinoff, and while it would be the next chapter in the story, it was not The Mandalorian Season 3. Now, I do remember that, and I remember most people not seeing that because it was like, I think it was in a trade or something. From the moment it was announced, it was made clear that the Book of Boba Fett would connect to the Mandalorian story, with many referring to it as the Mandalorian 2.5 internally. Still, people take issue with the show switching focus from Fett to other supporting characters. Well, once again, if they're calling it fucking Mr. Toad's Wild Ride internally, that has nothing to do with what audiences are watching on screen right now. That has nothing to do with your average consumer's, interaction with it. The series is called The Book of Boba Fett, not only because it features the infamous bounty hunter, but because Boba Fett's existence has affected the lives of every supporting character in this series. Let's begin with Cobb Vanth. Now, right there, I'm just going to intercede here and say, if this, I like where his mind is. I like how he's seeing it. I think it's a healthy way if you want to like it. But that said, they didn't show me a thing about Cobb Vanth. There weren't all of these disparate threads happening at the same time that wove a rich tapestry, where like each thread is intersecting, building a fabric that I can just completely adore and get behind. Instead, it was very much and then, and then, and then. Despite never meeting Fett, Cobb Vanth protected the people of Mos Pelgo using Fett's armor without Boba Fett. Vanth doesn't become the Marshal of Freetown. He doesn't befriend Din Djarin or form an alliance with the Tuskens. Right? Speaking of Din, the Mandalorian would have never rescued Grogu from Moff Gideon without the help of Boba Fett and his fire spray gunship. He owes Boba Fett big time, so much that he's willing to help aid Fett in his war free of charge. And once again, like that stuff, it's completely fine. But how much the exposition literally becomes a whole new episode. And then there's Luke Skywalker. Obviously, we know Fett's connection to the Jedi Master. Luke attempts to rescue Han Solo from Fett, but fails to set a trap by Darth Vader, in which he loses his hand and learns the terrible truth about his parentage. But once again, Fett never actually interacts with Luke Skywalker. Fett falls into the Sarlacc directly results from his rivalry with Skywalker and Solo. And this, I think, is colorful language. What rivalry? I have watched everything on screen, and there is no rivalry. He took a job, he did the job, then he hung out at the fat guy's house and got thrown into a pit. And there has been no work on screen to support a rivalry. His escape from the Sarlacc and his experiences with the Tuskens, the first chapters of the Book of Boba Fett, would not exist without the connection to Skywalker. Okay, that's fair enough. Skywalker affected him. Ahsoka Tano encountering a young Fett during the Clone Wars, her life was deeply affected by her relationship with Captain Rex and other clones this is really reaching. We're using Jango and thus Boba's DNA. When Rex takes off his helmet, Boba Fett's face looks back at her. No, once again, that's not there. I can't lie. I gotta disagree. It's beautiful poetry if you're overthinking it, but the series, the films, the cartoons, they have not done any work to own this. This is poetry that is being put there by the decoder. The encoders of the message are not intending that. Maybe they're hoping for it. The bounty hunter has touched Grogu's life in numerous ways as well. As previously mentioned, his rescue was dependent on the help of Boba Fett and his gunship. And as a youngling, Grogu came face to face with Fett's clone brethren during the attack of the Jedi Temple. Yeah. And oh boy, is there a lot coming with that in the future. Obviously, Fett has deep connections to characters like Cad Bane, his former mentor and greatest rival. But once again, this series, and just to be clear, I love those moments. Fantastic, great moments. But he's not fighting Boba Fett there. I mean, I guess he very will next episode, so maybe let's not get ahead of ourselves. But there has been no laying out any of this. It was simply, and then Cad Bane is there. And then Cad Bane shoots him. As opposed, like, it really, there was no like, we kicked the hornet's nest now and Cad Bane's coming, or, there was just nothing about it. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Love the moment. Once again, the moments are well done, but they, was it earned? It's a weird one because Filoni kind of created the guy, kind of did earn it, and as a Star Wars fan, I feel like kind of earned it. And as somebody who reads everything, I feel like it kind of earned it. But this show is not. It Oh, Melon. I hope I wasn't gone for a long time. Was I gone for a long time? I just saw. Yep. Okay, so it's like I was gone for about a minute. I apologize, guys. I had the tab open so I could read it, and it did what it did. I am going to be getting rid of Melon, you guys. I promise. This will not continue. Melon sucks. But anyways, so yeah, I agree that all of these things affect each other. The problem that I think that we have with the general like vibe of the show or the writing is that when it's called Book of Boba Fett, we want to get deeper. We want to learn more about Boba. We want not just people that are affecting Boba's life by existing. Lots of things affect my life and your life. And if I was to write the Dell, I was gone for almost 3 minutes. Jeepers creepers. That's great. Isn't that awesome? Anyways, this is why I need Rob. Can't do it on my own. But anyways, yeah. Those characters definitely do affect Boba's life, but they don't necessarily tell us much about him. Like they didn't really further the Boba story whatsoever. In fact, when we end the what is it? We've been like 2 episodes without Boba really being the focus. Well, when you call the show Book of Boba Fett, you expect it to be about Boba Fett entirely. You expect that it's going to be from his perspective. When we have a show that is about his perspective, and then all of a sudden it changes, I've seen like tweets going like, "This is epic storytelling, and you just don't understand it." And it's like, I don't think that's what that is. I don't think that's how that works. And I don't hate it, you guys. I actually really like it. I love that Luke Skywalker episode. It seems like if you're going to do something like this, it shouldn't be called that. Okay, now can I just let go of the title and then enjoy myself? Yeah, I am enjoying myself. I really am. Like every week, I'm enjoying myself. It's like a really strange prospect, because when I was like promised, the promise of the premise was announced. It was Boba Fett. I'm going to know all about him. I'm going to know more than I've ever known him. And the truth is I don't. I already knew he missed his daddy when his daddy got his head cut off from Attack of the Clones. It wasn't pushed any further at all at that moment. It just wasn't. And does any of that matter to the story? Does Boba want to, and maybe the last episode is going to tie it all up. And if it does, I'll be like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Amazing. Hey, you guys were right. I'll totally say that. I would love to. I hope to say that. But if you're going to have shows named after like characters, once again, I think I was cut off before when I was frozen up when I told you guys. Rob, who likes me more than likes you. I'm kidding. I don't know. He probably doesn't like anybody. But he was saying like, yeah, if this was like the Book of Tatooine, and I was like, yeah, if it was like the Battle of Tatooine or something like that, then you'd be like, yeah. Then we'd have like all of these things happening, and it would feel like it was an epic thing. But I don't know any more about Boba Fett. I don't even really know why he wants to be a crime lord. I don't really know exactly like what his motivations are. They're not clear. And if the storytelling is doing it like with this intriguing kind of thing, it's not really happening very well for me on that front. Liking it all as individual Star Wars stories and thinking it's all pretty fun for what it is. And like that Luke moment, cool. I love that. But it almost feels like maybe these things should be under like a moniker, like for instance, Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe it should be like Star Wars The Dark Times, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then all of the shows that are happening in that era that interact, then we just kind of get it. Oh, this is the Dark Times. This is that, but where we're at with this one, it's like it doesn't feel very focused, and you start to feel invested, and you're like, okay, this is going somewhere, and then it just slams on the brakes, slams them on. And so, anyways, but once again, I'm not trying to throw any shade at Adam Frazier's tweets or him or anything like that. Just that I disagree, and I see it like going around and these weird justifications, and I'm like, man, I love Star Wars, but I mean, it doesn't mean that it's perfect. It doesn't mean that it's the right way to go, but it's the way they've gone, and I'm on board for the story. I love it. It's fun. So far, it's pretty fun. Yeah, it's wonky, but not really clunky, and that's where like it just feel like if we drop the title, if we don't take the title into account, it starts to work a lot better. But yeah, it is, but it's ultimately like the other thing is that there's from that tweet, there's a lot of people going like they've been telling you this from the start. But I shouldn't have to attend a Disney investor meeting to know what the story is about or what to expect. The expectations should be set, right? So that's my take on it. Oops, that's my take on it right now. I was bumping into this desk, but that's where I have a feeling, like I have a feeling that they've done a better job with Kenobi so far. That just based off of the random shit that I've heard over the last year about Kenobi, I feel like the expectations on that one and the quote promise of the premise make a lot more sense. So, in a weird way, we may come out of this one and going forward with the other shows actually missing this weirdness a little bit, this randomness, if you will. That's not the right word. I don't mean to say it's random. It's not. It's not. And then like a 4-year-old is telling it. It's well, wouldn't it be great to tell this story now? And a part of me digs that. I mean, it feels kind of fresh, but yeah, it's just yeah. Salvador says if the title was Star Wars Underworld, maybe the situation with the storyline would be different. Exactly, and also if it's this idea that all of these factors are coming into play, like we should have had moments with Cobb Vanth in the first episode, not with even with Boba. Just here's Cobb Vanth, and there are he's the sheriff, and there's things that are going on. Like, can you imagine if you watch Deadwood and you didn't see Swearingen until like the 8th episode? What? Why? Why would you do that when you have all of these great characters? Why would you do it that way? And it does feel like I don't feel like it's as dirty of a and then and then. It doesn't feel like it's like as dirty of like a misstep as much as the structure is doing that rather than but the storytelling isn't exactly doing that. The events just like here's a sideways story now, and don't know what to make of it. Oh, thank you for the old super chat fandom. I appreciate it. And I think it's Canadian because I love those Canadian bucks. Thanks, man. From Fandom Empire, heard Kenobi runtimes are longest yet for Star Wars on Disney Plus. Any truth to that? Prediction: Luke and Han appear in Episode 7. Let's do a show when I'm not sick as a dog. Oh, are you sick, dude? Sorry. Yeah, whenever you want to come on, you're always welcome, and not because you gave me a $6.99 super chat. But it helps. No, you're always welcome to. If you ever want to come on, just send me a DM. Say, hey, I'm not doing anything today, and I'll just send it to you. Yeah, and I hope you get better, and I hope it's not. I hope it's just allergies or something, and not COVID. I hope you're okay. So as far as Kenobi runtimes go, I don't know what the lock is on the edits there. So I honestly on that part I don't know. They did sound like they were like in the 45-minute range to me. And then prediction: Han and Luke appear in Episode 7. Yeah, I mean, so guys, remember Viewer Anon? Viewer Anon. I don't really follow the film industry, spoiler stuff that much, but I do remember when I was scooping. I think Episode 9, Viewer Anon was validating the things that I was doing at that time. And oh no, it says, nah, man, The family has the vid. I'm sorry, dude. I hope everybody's vaccinated and it's real chill, for being a shitty time. Uh, but anyways, what was I was saying was yeah, they're definitely they're definitely gonna go a different angle according to viewer anon. So like what we're all expecting, it doesn't do that. And they also clarified recently that they said that there was a sequel trilogy connection, and they said that Luke Skywalker Jedi Temple moment wasn't what they were talking about. So I'm like, I've been of the opinion that the Imperial Remnant's going to show up, but are we going to see Snoke show up? Because we did kind of get the vibe that Luke and Snoke have had this thing going on for a long time, and you know, so Fandom says we are. My 2-year-old isn't sadly, but thanks for the well wishes, man. Yeah, that. I'm so sorry, dude. Yeah, that was like so stressful for me before I got vaccinated, and I was like, I got vaccinated. Yeah, I could do stuff. And then like slowly it just hit me. I'm like, no, I can't, because I could still bring it, to my unvaccinated kids. And thankfully my kids are 6 and 8, and I was able to get them vaccinated. So I hope it's not I hope it's not bad. Yeah, I've had a couple of friends. I had a couple of friends who've had infants get it too. Thankfully, it didn't appear too bad for them. So positive vibes your way. You will be in our thoughts for sure. Um, Dave says most Kenobi episodes will be 45 minutes, except the first one will be 15 minutes to piss me off. They're going to circumvent your expectations. Yeah. Can you imagine if you go to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, the first episode Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then the second episode is Rick Alay, because Rick Alay flew the spaceship that got Obi-Wan Kenobi to meet Anakin. That's all connected, you guys. But it's definitely the kind of situation where I want them to be able to tell the wider story, and to be able to like pull the lens out a little bit and see the bigger galaxy and how this stuff is all playing in. And I want to see Luke Skywalker training Grogu and what he's up to and how he started his Jedi Temple, like all of those things, those check boxes that we've always wondered about, or that we have recently started to wonder about. They're like doing it, and like that is really, 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 really rad, But don't worry, you're gonna get that in Ahsoka. I think for sure. I think you will, and you're probably going to get it in Kenobi too. I would think. So, with all of that in mind, I just think it's important that like we keep a good attitude about, okay, they did this batshit story, but the things aren't limited anymore. We're going to get more of this, more Star Wars Boba Fett stories. Like, it's going to happen. It's just we kind of were expecting a better focus up front. And if I had to say, like, as Star Wars stories go, I'm going to give it like a really solid B+ right now. Where it's at, where my vibe is that it's B+. As a Boba Fett story, as a Boba Fett focus, it's not. It's on focus. It's like a C. And but once again, but the detours it took were A+. So it's like, how do you make sense of this? How do you, anybody who's like, oh, you just need to shut up and understand what Dave Filoni and Favreau are telling. Well, no, that's not true, because I still it's not really hitting my Boba Fett G spot is not being hit right now. Okay, but my Star Wars one, oh, they're flicking the Star Wars being good. So, Dave said, I was hoping all the Jedi would be harping on Luke and he's losing his mind. I wanted Luke to stop mid-sentence and say, Yoda, I got it. Shut up. Yeah. I know. I can't remember who it was. Somebody had like a funny tweet where there's like, you know what? This kid's too hard to train. or a funny message on here where Luke just takes him back. Baby Yoda, Grogu. He's just like, you know what? This guy, he's already 50. Um, Darth Del Rio sent me a pretty good message on the old Facebook, not the Facebook machine. It was on the YouTube machine. And I wanted to read it because when you guys leave comments for the show, and the show's already happened, I'll try to get to them, especially if they're really good. And timely, if it's like 2 years after, I don't know if I will, but if it's, the next episode, I'll try to. Darth Del Rio asked me, do you think Lucasfilm will carry on the idea that Jedi should be trained at young ages as to avoid attachments? It seems Yoda and the Jedi of the prequel era have in some ways been vilified in recent years in the books, comics, and some fans for their dogmatic view of this, but it seems their belief in the system is justified. Anakin and Ben Solo seem to prove Yoda right, and even Luke's attachments caused him to almost strike out against Ben, which led him down his path. There is also the real-world influence of this that Buddhism teaches that suffering is caused by attachments, which I think is where Lucas got the idea from. I hope they stick with this idea, but I think the future movie makers may feel it limits them on their storytelling potential. So I thought this was a really good question. And Lucas read some sociology books about children who are removed from their parents at too young of an age, before about 8 or 9, and how that affects attachment. And so I think that maybe Buddhism and maybe that together is where we get this concept. But the truth is that Grogu is in this really weird place. I mean, we don't understand Grogu at all. We have a bunch of assumptions. When you're 50 years old and still like a baby, is he mentally having the thoughts of a 50-year-old, but just that he is super, his body and in some ways his development isn't there? And then, he matures into an adult. Like, does it happen rapidly? But he's already in a weird place now, because what they have created with Grogu is the bad parts already happened. He was raised in the Jedi Temple. Then he joins, or then he's abducted, having already begun his training, has his memory wiped, then is eventually gets a father, and he's like a baby, but he gets his father, and he forms that attachment. Then Luke Skywalker restores his memory. But where does that attachment go? Granted, he may have some Jedi knowledge, some Jedi wisdom that he's picked up on how to contend with those feelings. The conflict is still there that never should have happened. Once Anakin Skywalker kisses Padme and they go to get married, he already knew better, but now the attachment is truly there. It's formed. So, but he already has access to this power too. What do you do with that? I mean, in the old Jedi idea, used to be what? They became farmers. They get kicked out. They get fired. They have to go become farmers. And then that, we haven't really heard anything about that since. And but so Grogu is already not a good candidate to further his Jedi teachings. At the same time, he has enough to become a complete disaster if they don't. So it's a weird place. It definitely is. And I think Star Wars is always going to teach that idea that, attachments are bad. I mean, because actually I don't need these anymore, because the idea of not letting go is bad. Like being able to let go and accept change, because change is inevitable. That's one of the things Phantom Menace is really trying to hammer home. Change is going to happen. And it doesn't matter if you don't accept it. It doesn't care. It's going to happen. So, anyways, not sure what happens with Grogu, but Star Wars is going to keep doing this, because if you have everyone's perfect, then there's no story. There's no friction. There's no tension. There's no reason to for anything to happen. It just would become, and then things happen to the perfect guy, and then more stuff happened to the perfect guy. There has to be, the sort of friction, or we don't really have any reasons for these stories to exist. Um, Salvador asks, "Do you think Filoni should continue the Skywalker saga 10 through 12? He proves he understands so much Lucas's point of view. He deserves it." I really don't know. I will say um, I'm mixed, because I definitely would prefer somebody like Dave Filoni or even Jon Favreau over somebody like J.J. Abrams, who isn't really like cares and I think did his best job, but also isn't super invested, you know? And was he? I think JJ was the right person in 2015, not the right person in 2019. It's how it goes, It's that can happen. But Dave Filoni, could he do it? I think he could. But Dave Filoni also is a master at knowing what we want. He's tied in enough to know what the fans are asking for, but what the fans want and what the fans need are never the same thing. That's, I think, where my hesitancy with Filoni lies. At the same time, I would rather have another Filoni. I'd rather have a Filoni film than a J.J. Abrams film. And does he deserve a shot? At this point, he's made the cartoons good. He's made the live action television shows good. Why wouldn't he make the films good? Right? Or well? I think he should try. I think they should give him a shot eventually. Maybe when one of these series has a story that culminates into a spinoff or something bigger, it'll happen. They'll be like, well, this makes sense. Dave says, I was hoping all the Jedi would be harping on. Oh, yeah, we were that one. Okay. And then, hey, what's up, dude? How you doing, Mr. Geek Furious? Missed you around these parts, partner. How does Filoni understand Lucas's point of view when Lucas didn't even understand his point of view until his ideas were in the public eye and he went, yep, that's what I always meant. Yeah. I do think, though, that we can agree that there is a very George Lucas way of doing things, a George Lucas style of teaching, and a George Lucas style of understanding black, white, or morality and immorality and stuff like that, and growth. And I think George Lucas, especially as time went on, wanted to be a teacher more than a filmmaker. And so I feel like there's a little bit of that Filoni has brought to the table that is very George Lucas. Like one of the greatest messages that I think we've seen in Star Wars since George Lucas was when Luke tells Grogu, always get up. Those kind of things. They're not really that deep. They're a bit basic, but you know what? It helps to hear it. It helps. And I feel like somebody is going to see that at the right moment of their lives, and it's going to be like, yeah, okay, and this helped me, or I remembered that, and it helped me. And I don't really get that from, like, for instance, J.J. Abrams. And once again, I'm not trying to, and Rian Johnson, kind of. I didn't really get that from them as much. And so I think Filoni understands what George would like, but at the same time, I'm guessing that you would agree with me on this. George Lucas did fall out of touch with the pulse of pop culture and how to make those messages connect with general audiences, with everyone in the general audience. So, okay, I will try, Ben, and I'm going to probably fail to some extent, but Ben Bamboo says, can someone explain Dave's role exactly? He's supposedly chief creative officer, but only now is reportedly in talks to have a say in films as well. Why wasn't this the case before? See, I think that, like, The way I understand how things kind of seem to go is people begin to do those jobs before they are reclassified as that, before it's officially their job and the expectation. I mean, there's been the Lucasfilm Story Group, and the Lucasfilm Story Group is oftentimes meant to be viewed as this think tank where they're like drawing connections and doing stuff, but in reality, it was a mostly peer review group who managed canon is kind of what it sounds like. And that's probably to some extent because you had people coming in, outside filmmakers who were being hired that were like, I don't really want to do this, I don't know. And they're like, you can do whatever you want, JJ. And then they're like, and then so they're kind of like, well, okay, we're going to facilitate him. And I that's the vibe that I kind of got from all of this. But being the chief creative officer, I think if you're not being creative enough, and he puts you in cuffs and he takes you outside and he's like, book him, Favreau. No, he probably is essentially like really overseeing a lot of the creative decisions that are going on. A lot of the things that I think people probably think Kathleen Kennedy does, and to some extent she does, but I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy is necessarily contributing creative advice as much as looking at things as a producer and saying, this is not going to work. This isn't financially, a smart move. None of this stuff. I'm not really understanding this film, that kind of stuff. And I think that Filoni is likely helping with the overall creative vision of all of these things. And I think that that role most likely, and this is once again is me assuming some shit here, but you had Dave Filoni, who was managing the cartoons, was supervising the general like cartoon department, the animation, Lucasfilm Animation, and then he starts doing live action, and he steps away, but he still sort of manages. So when you get down to it, that's what he became. That's how I'm betting this happened, and people were at the time wondering like, why wasn't this a big deal? Why wasn't? And once again, I could be completely wrong. I'm just doing my best here, but everyone was like, well, why wasn't this like a big announcement? And I think it's just because he kind of like became that. That's what he evolved into for the company, and it says all the material for TV and films, but it's also worth considering it and looking at when he became that and what the future films are. Like right now, we're not necessarily, as far as we know, looking at a Skywalker saga, for instance. So what that means when they do Rogue Squadron script, or story and the pitch and the idea, and they're looking for contributions and stuff like that, he definitely is going to play into that and have a lot to add. So I could definitely see him doing a fine Star Wars film. At the same time, he's never made a film, so we don't know. We don't know kind of where he peters out. We don't know, if he's done years now of short form Star Wars storytelling that would then expand. Does he do a 2-hour Star Wars film? Does he's able to make that really, really good? Do his general ideas and concepts flow into that? I don't know. Do I believe he could do it? 100% though. I really do. I would be perfectly happy and fine if we found out he was directing something like Rogue Squadron, for instance. So Ben says it was almost like they didn't announce it because they didn't want it to be news. I think it wasn't news to them. That's just me, but I think, like I said, I think he evolved into this role, and I don't think that it was like meant to be a secret. They don't really generally do press releases when people get promoted. We follow Dave Filoni. We like him. We know who he is, and but there's so many other people of great importance who have been promoted in the past, and there was never anything about that either. You know what I mean? Producers who have been on every single thing that we've ever had who have gotten promoted, they don't say that either. So I in a weird way, I kind of think that when Filoni sort of took over the Rick McCallum spot, um, I think that's when things started to we started to see Filoni as like one of us, and then he is a big dork fan like us too, and we did see, so there's this one of us vibe to him that we've always had. And I've talked to him several times. He's always been a nice, great dude, just a dude. So would I want that dude doing the Star Wars movie? Yeah. I mean, he would deliver what I want. But once again, there is always, I think Rian Johnson was giving that story what it needed, and some Star Wars fans were like, but that's not what I wanted. And it could have been a good trilogy. I love it, and I am disappointed in the same time, though, that whole trilogy in the end. Ben says, I hope so, but this should have been the case from the beginning. Once he was announced as chief creative officer, there should be no delineation between TV and film with that role. Yeah. And see, the weird thing is that like they keep getting these what I call rock star directors, they get these big names with big power, who have the ability to probably deliver quality, and that's why they're doing it. But in doing so, it kind of, I think it makes for a lot of difficulties for them in the end. Like JJ I still think was the right person for episode 7, and I think Ryan was the right person for episode 8. And then when we get to episode 9, for instance, had it just been a really competent director who makes just very balanced, good choices, it probably would have been a lot better and a little bit less wacky, a little bit more focused, and would have probably tied all of the themes together a little bit tighter, But and then he goes on to say, Ben says, I can get the reasoning, but I think a good storyteller is a good storyteller, regardless of the medium. If you took a few Clone War episodes and put them back to back, it would be film length. That is true, and that was one of the things that they were doing with the Clone Wars for basically the entirety of it. And Young Indiana Jones was this idea of, what if we take these micro stories and then turn them into movies? Are they structurally good movies? I think that's here and there, Are some of the stories like fine? Would have made fine standalone films? Like what's the one? The General Krill arc would have been one of the best Clone Wars movies I can imagine. And so like I could see that. At the same time, like, they're not really focused. The Clone Wars episodes, they go roundabout. There's a lot of and then storytelling when you put these episodes together. And what we're seeing with the Book of Boba Fett is somewhat of that as well. But that's mostly Jon Favreau writing. But I don't know. I mean, I think he could do it. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is I totally believe in him. But when you say a good storyteller is a good storyteller, some ways I disagree with you there. I know what you mean. And I think that in a lot of ways you're right. But where I disagree is that like some people are going to make really good graphic novels and tell really great stories in graphic novels. It doesn't mean that film is their medium. UFOs are transmedium. Creators often aren't. If George Lucas decided he was going to score the Star Wars movie, no, I guess that's not fair. It's going too far out. But George Lucas was going to make short films. They'd be like, yeah, if George Lucas was going to make silent films, it'd be on. George Lucas would be the best silent filmmaker of our generation. But if George Lucas was going to make a talkie, even though it's creative, or something else is like a completely like different, George Lucas was going to do a comic book, I don't know if it would be good. I don't know. I do think that creative people and inspired people oftentimes rise to the occasion, though. So I completely see where you're going with it. But it's like, a lot of music video filmmakers or music video makers who were very good would make one film and it would be really good, and every film they made after that was bad. That's happened lots of times too. But yeah, then you agree about like the big names thing. Kathleen went after big names of the people who really know the source material, like Filoni, and what was his name, Gary Whitta. There was like this like kick up because he had talked a bunch of trash on the special editions and advocated for pirating the Star Wars films instead of giving George Lucas any of your money and all the stuff. Then he got Rogue One, and a bunch of fans were like all pissed off about it. Oh, he doesn't like George Lucas and all that stuff. And like my perspective on that one was, you know what? He doesn't really get George Lucas, and that's okay. But maybe he gets Star Wars in a different way that gives us something new. And that's always been my perspective on it. It's like, because sometimes I think somebody can like something so much that there does become sort of like paralysis by analysis. And when you have somebody who isn't tied into that paralysis just isn't there. They're able to get on with it. They're able to move on. Right now, what Filoni's doing is really giving us a lot of Star Wars that we dig. Like we're liking it. It's fun. But what if Filoni can't crawl out and truly like move forward? He's really good at taking what's there and playing with those toys. That's the thing that we've seen so far. But we need I guess we need Filoni to turn it all on its head and give us something completely not built on the foundations of what came before every single time. I'm not saying to ignore it, but that's what I hoped for from somebody like Rian Johnson, and I think that's mostly what he did. I think he did know a lot of it though. But with like JJ, for instance, there was a lot of just like, yeah, I know, but I don't care. And that stuff, it gets kind of insulting at times when you're like a fan like we are and you follow every single thing. But I saw Krill fell harder than Anakin. Yeah, that Krill story arc was so good. It really, really, truly was. It's one of those kind of things where like I believe that there could be Star Wars films based off of things that we just never considered. Bridge over the River Quiet things. Like, just you take any war movie premise, like Dam Busters, any war movie for the most part, and it could be a Star Wars movie. I mean, Black Hawk Down. You could do a Star Wars movie like Black Hawk Down. All of those things, and take what's fun, make it faster, snappier, bright neon lights with lasers and lightsabers shooting through, and now you have something that's not bleak and boring necessarily. But we have these assumptions, and myself included, that we just think it's going to be like a home run, or that somebody didn't know Star Wars. And the truth is that the creatives who are involved in these movies, they're given everything. They are able to sit down at a table and look at all of the books of the concept art. Hey, it's Mike Porter, the official comedian of Star Wars YouTube, so I call him. But they do have access to everything. I mean, they get on the phone with George Lucas a lot of the times. I think pretty much all of them did. And so the idea that like they don't know George, whatever, it's that they don't kind of just don't care, or they don't make movies like that. It makes sense. It can be good. Excuse me. Fresh blood can be a good thing. We've had for instance, like I love the Han Solo movie. I do love it. I watch it every now and then. Now I kind of got burnt out on it, and then I kind of come back to it, and I watch it every now and then. And I'm like, yeah, I love when I'm watching. I'm like, this is fun. I love this. This is Star Wars, and it's good. But it doesn't really have it's not very fresh, is it? Like it's not very innovative. It doesn't really think outside the Star Wars paradigm or expand it. It plays with the paradigm very good. That's what Filoni does. That's what he's great at. And but we need both. We continually need there to be people that are kind of messing it up. And when I say messing up, I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean like doing new things with it that were never done. That's what I liked about Clone Wars. like Clone Wars was like, oh, let's do like a Hitchcock episode with Star Wars. Like, remember that really weird one where they had that weird like private eye? Like it was corny. Did it work? No, probably not. But they tried, and I loved it. I loved that they tried. It came out and it was done and it was fine. And I relate all of this back to Book of Boba, by the way, because Book of Boba is like the focus makes me kind of annoyed. I wanted more sooner than I'm getting from Boba. At the same time, I mean the asides that they've given us have been fantastic. So if they were going sideways and we were getting like ice cream maker guy's story, and it turns out that Casey had Boba's Jango Fett helmet that didn't get blown up in it, and he needed to bring it to him. Well, that pissed me off. Instead, we got Luke Skywalker teaching Grogu, and boy, was it was beautiful and it was amazing. But sometimes when I've rewatched that episode, I'm like, this is what they want to be doing. They're doing this, but they want to be doing this. And the truth is almost if you inverted this, if it was the Luke Skywalker show, and on the backdrop, Boba's doing what he's doing, and then Luke has to contend with it in some way, that might have been the better way to go. But this is how they are doing it, you know. But yeah, James, you and I are on the same page here, you know, like a bantha. We should get a live action story called Tales of Something, and no one can complain if the character should or shouldn't be in it, and have a story with each episode and different character. And that's completely what I think too. And maybe, I don't see, like in Kenobi is the thing that is the outlier here. And Acolyte, they don't necessarily connect. I do think there is a connection to Kenobi. I do think there is a connection, but I'm not there yet to talk about it. But what if it says, what if Filoni was in a Viking position? I kind of think that, like, in a certain way, I think he maybe is in a Viking position, but he doesn't. But it's not absolute power, you know. It's he's not the president of Lucasfilm, but maybe someday, you know, maybe someday. I think that could happen someday. But I've also always heard that the most likely next president was Michelle Rejuan. But, you know, when it comes to corporations, which is what this still is, you know, people don't stay forever. So, you know, she may end up bouncing because she gets the job from Warner Brothers or something like that eventually. And but I see Filoni as staying as long as they will allow him to. So that's kind of my take on it. And does Filoni deserve it? I think that was brought up, and I think he absolutely does. I mean, he's brought me, episode the Clone Wars. So for that alone, I would have been happy back then if he had got episode 7. Shut up, Melanie jerk. There was a few minutes where I was like, maybe Filoni's going to direct episode 7. And I was like, nah, they're not going to do that. and they didn't, but it was worth asking at the time. And I think if I've wondered if Lucas had stayed, if that's what would have happened, or did Filoni just have too much of that "you're my Padawan" vibe, you know, by Lucas to be that person. But yeah, so Mike says, I looked at a GIF of Boba Fett for 20 seconds. That was twice as much as he cameoed in his own show in episodes 5 and 6. Yeah, and if you I don't like using the word like apologist, but if you are being one of the apologists like on Twitter who's just saying you don't understand epic storytelling and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff, I could say to that the critique is, this stuff Boba Fett wasn't even really like mentioned. It wasn't it wasn't because I'm stupid. I am stupid, but it wasn't because I'm stupid that I didn't get it. It's just that they weren't really doing that. Luke Skywalker's never said the name Boba Fett in this series. Yeah, I don't know. And right now, like there's no apparent need for Boba Fett or reason to interact. So it's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that I don't think it's as clear cut. But if the stuff pays off, then at the end of the day, hey, I'm all for it. I always wanted a variety Star Wars show that could jump to any character, any timeline. James could do single episodes or 3 to 4 episode arcs of young Leia, Yoda, bounty hunters, etc. Yeah, see, that's kind of the thing, Ben. That's essentially what we're getting. We just don't. It's when you get down to it, when you put all of these shows together, that's what they are amounting to. If there was just one Star Wars show and it was linearly going on, that's what it would be. But instead, they're like giving them these like subtitles, and that's kind of almost what I think this is. I do think it changes when you get Deborah Chow in there, and it does change. When you have like Leslie Headland doing her series, then it's different. But with, as mentioned, Filoni having that chief creative officer moniker, he may have more to play with those shows than we think. And I'll talk about that a bit in the future. I promise. When is Ahsoka timeline set, assuming all the shows are linked? I believe like basically the Ahsoka show is launching off right here, like where we just saw her leaving the Luke Skywalker stuff or whatever. Like this time, it's all like she's not staying with Luke and Grogu and helping out or just chilling with them or whatever, because she's on that quest. So all of that stuff is gonna go in. So we may see these characters play into the Ahsoka series. I mean, at this point, it seems completely like it should. And like, I've seen stuff for all of the Rebels characters showing up, except for what's his name who died, Cowboy Jedi who died. And so I haven't seen the Son. I don't know if the Son's in it or not either. But all that stuff's gonna play in. So it's neat. It kind of is that. I think if we come at it to this from this perspective of all of these shows are essentially doing that, I think it's a little bit easier to swallow. But it is they are not managing expectations. They aren't really being upfront with what it is that you're getting, and I don't know if it's worth it. It seems like for as many people as they they turn off and confuse. And like when you get to like your really casual level, the real casual level of people, they are a little bit confused between like it should be obvious. But when you just sit down and watch an episode and all of a sudden, it's like a different guy who looks like Boba Fett and it's not, I've seen a lot of confusion from that. And people forget these little moments from the previous seasons because they came out like 2 years ago. The people who are just casual, like I thought he couldn't take his helmet off, but that kind of stuff. I know it seems arbitrary, but that is what starts to kill casual people. They go, I'm just confused. This is hard. I want to watch TV passively, and so they kind of have to walk a fine line there. Do people want a Luke Ahsoka relationship? If I was Luke Skywalker and I was on that planet and Ahsoka came over, I'd be like, hey, you want to maybe go out for some Jedi juice or something one of these times? You got a cute boyfriend, But Luke Skywalker is like, nope, I'm Luke Skywalker. But no, in terms of them having like an actual like relationship, as in, I think that Luke, they seem like they want to put Luke as a master, and like he has already figured everything out. And to some extent, I think that's fine. But Luke also should be wanting to learn from the other masters, the people who have the same power that he has, and he shouldn't be full of hubris. He shouldn't be full of the same things that led to the downfall of the Jedi Order, and he does make the same mistake essentially, and that's more thanks to JJ when you get down to it, that we're there. But you know, do you think the Lando series is dead? I don't. I don't think so. I haven't heard any announcements of casting or anything about it whatsoever since the very first announcement of the show itself. Yeah, as far as I understand, that show is still like a ways away, and yeah, there hasn't been anything of big note on it. But I would not be surprised. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we got that one in late 2023, or if not even like further away. But never say never. These things have a tendency just to come out of nowhere. My question has been, are they going to de-age Billy D? Are they going to use that tech that they've used for Luke to bring Lando back in, and to bring Billy D back into the role? And they kind of announced Billy D's association with it and hinted at that stuff back in episode 9. They hadn't had any of these huge gains with Luke Skywalker at that point in the flashback. In fact, he looked pretty terrible in episode 9. So I don't know if that was originally the plan, but I'm curious if it's become the plan. And boy, would I love that. Would I love to see young Billy D getting that same kind of Mark Hamill attention, as far as I understand, it is live action. So, and yeah, Luke only kissed his sister. Ahsoka is closer to a master than him at this point in the timeline. Yeah, I would have to imagine she is. I mean, but we don't really know what their interactions have been. When we see him, Luke Skywalker, come up, I'm sure this is important. I'm actually about to end this in just a minute, James. I would totally love to have you on. But yeah, that said, Luke may have learned a lot of what he knows from Ahsoka. We don't really know what their interactions have been overall. But it does seem a bit shallow because he is like, "Will I ever see you again?" And and just kind of gives her smug, like it's not a promise thing, But I do personally think Luke and Ahsoka are going to have a lot of screen time moving forward. I do think that it's going to eventually become a lot bigger, and Dave feels that Luke deepfake puppet's dialogue is kind of stiff, no soul. Yeah, I agree with you. That was my like, what I said afterwards when we first saw it, is I was like, visually now they really have it pretty down. The voice and the connection to the voice, feeling like it comes from that body. That's the one thing that they haven't quite nailed. It feels a little bit like you're watching anime, like dubbed anime or something like that. And I can get into it. It's fine. And I would take it over not getting it for sure. But yeah, they've made a weird place, because like if they found a new great Luke Skywalker, that person is now going to be thoroughly rejected for, why didn't you just deep fake it better? Why can't you just deep fake better? And I have questions. I don't understand. I mean, I understand the process of deep fake, but I don't know what the ceiling is. I don't know and I don't know how much further they can push it. And is this something that's going to have exponential growth in the coming years or not? I would think that they have an investment in that being the case, in both the audio and the visual. People will tend to not really notice the audio as much as the visual, though. I think we're much better at looking than listening as a society. It's kind of a big problem, in my opinion. But I am very hopeful that like that last time we saw Luke just now, which was beautiful. I'm hoping that's the word. That's as bad as it's ever going to get. I hope so anyway. Richie, oh Richie, yeah, Richie, you soon, Richie, soon. I promise you, soon, Richie. Your answers will come to you. I thought the Luke was 95, 97% there. Strangely, Shamook's deepfakes on his YouTube channel looked better. You think really? I thought felt like they were pretty much the same. There was like one shot where Luke is kind of like at this angle where I thought like his like that the nose and stuff all of a sudden didn't look necessarily right. But overall, I was pretty happy with it. But he was also like doing a lot of like, I'm a Jedi Master and I'm just telling you fortune cookies, you know. Like there wasn't like it wasn't a very emotional performance. It wasn't required to be. The question is you know, if we needed to remake A New Hope and see Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru die, like or Obi-Wan die on the Death Star, and Luke go no and that kind of stuff, like could that have happened real? Could you remake him saying no to the I am not your father moment? I don't think so. But Dave says you have to guess there is a voice actor with a spot on Luke voice that could actually act. Yeah. You would think so. And you know, they're building this up, so maybe they will. You know, there usually is somebody who voice actor who fills in when they can't make it to do ADR work. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a combination of all of these things coming together to do this, to make this happen. But come on, little fella, sounded like a junior high play. My problem was like more of like word choice, like not saying that's how Yoda spoke, that's how Yoda talked. And I was like, oh, is that, you know, but it was that it felt very like Luke, something that Luke would say, but not something that a Jedi Master would say. But that's my personal gripe. So yeah, it would be nice if they upgraded. It would be nice if they upgraded Tarkin. It would be nice if they upgraded Leia in Rogue One as well. It would be nice if they upgraded Luke and Leia in Episode 9. If they just did all of that stuff, I would be very happy with it, you know. So, and then Shemux, Harrison Ford deepfake in Solo was seamless, apart from Alden Ehrenreich's square jaw, which wasn't Shemux's fault. Yeah, and that's the thing is that I would have to imagine that he's going into like with Lucasfilm Archives and getting like all of the photos like in super high quality, like the best quality you can get, not just like, you know, 128 kilobyte JPEG off of Google. You know what I mean? So he probably has more reference material at a higher quality than anybody in the world can get for those characters, or for Luke especially. I would think having that access at Lucasfilm. So, and in my opinion, that's why it did look that good. But I thought he did. I don't know if I agree that what he did on his own channel was better. I felt like it was pretty much like very much like the same thing. But you know, I am looking forward to what they do and what Shamuk brings to the table in the future, because I am definitely grateful for that. I can't lie. As critical as I am about Boba Fett, poor guy, losing so much screen time and upfront importance in his own story, giving me that Luke moment, it was well worth it. But all right, everyone, I got a lunch date to make, so I'm going to take off. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today, and for being a Patreon supporter and a channel member, or a channel member. If you're both, you're crazy, but thank you. And I appreciate it. And I will be back on Monday at 11 a.m. talking about Star Wars, like always. And I hope everybody has a good weekend. And, you know, stay safe. And for our friends that are, you know, battling the old COVID this at this time, and our buddy Fandom Empire, I hope everyone feels better soon, and that it, you know, everything's as minor as can be. And thanks for hanging out with me, even though it kicked me off for a minute. I didn't know it. That's, you know, that's just Melon these days. But I'm going to be, after this service runs out, I will not renew. I'll jump over to the other one, to the old one, and we'll go back that way. And whatever happens. At that point, if it's just still doing it to me, then it's me, and I don't know what to do. But also, I prefer the old service because they give me audio files of the show that I can do as a podcast. So I would like to put these up as a podcast for people who can't have video up, at work and stuff like that. And so I think that's the plan, Stan. But thanks everyone, and I am always grateful that you guys want to hang out with me and talk about Star Wars every day. It means a lot to me, it really does. And I can't wait to get into Kenobi country with you, because we got a lot of good stuff coming, and it's going to be real fun. I promise. And I'll see you guys on the flip side.
It's not about spaceships.